prepared yet.
You need to try and pick off the units as...
Look at the shields on the mark.
Oh my god, the drone's gonna take this!
Well, here we are, Tasteless. It is game number 2, Minigun against DieStar. The map, Terminus Re, and Minigun leads 1-0.
Yeah, we saw an interesting game with these two guys. In game number 1, unfortunately, our Terran player was kind of unable to have any presence on the map. He lost his ghost to those feedbacks from the High Templars, and from there it was just pretty much a one-sided game. The Storm Drops playing a pretty big role as well. I think our Terran's going to have much more solid mid-game and late game if he's going to pull through with a win in this series.
Yeah, I got to go back to that last game for a minute, Tasteless, and be a little bit critical of DieStar. He got, 4 or 5 ghosts feedbacked, had this medium amount of units in the middle of the game, and decided to attack anyways. In what world does that attack ever work?
Well, and another factor with that was there was an observer over the army the entire time. Now,
yeah.
You shouldn't always be scanning your army, but if you see a robotech, you have to assume there's at least one observer on top of you.
You
throughout
have
the
to,
game, especially when you're moving.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to put down a scan or two. If Protoss sees exactly where your army is and what you have, as long as he can make good decisions, you are actually dead. So definitely something that you have to take care of there. I got to tell you, I'm hoping to see some stronger play out of DieStar this game. I want to see this at least go to a game 3. These are both two very good players.
And I think you're absolutely right. And, with guys like this, there is a lot of pressure. This is a big event. The IPL, one of the biggest esports events in the world right now. And I think, we didn't see the best game from our Terran player. For Protoss, it was pretty straightforward. I mean, we didn't really see any major mistakes from the Protoss. He was harassing. He had some great storm drops. And
I like
looked
that
pretty
a lot,
easy.
actually. We never really see storm drops. And to see someone finally starting to mix that in, you got a couple warp prisms, he went around, he tried some harassment. Some of it was more successful than others, but really that lends me to believe that our Protoss player will end up taking this series.
Yeah, so far he's looking pretty good. One thing to note about the previous game we saw, since this game hasn't really picked up yet, is that we didn't see him tech to Colossus right away. He got a Robo Bay, got observers, and went right into harassing. And I think we need to see a little bit more of that from Protosses everywhere. I mean, not just the Korean ones we cast at the GSL or, ones we're seeing here at IPL. Is if you go Colossus, it's pretty clear to the Terran, regardless of the Terran's, experience or intelligence, it's just so clear that you have to get Vikings.
Yeah.
That I think mixing it up and, for instance, going for a Templar tech, doing some harassment, and as you said, with the Psionic Storm Drop, doing stuff that we don't see as much in StarCraft 2 is really going to put a Terran player on his toes, and as we could see in our previous game, he just wasn't really prepared for that.
Yeah, quite true. There's a lot more options, I think, when you're not just relying most of your supply on this Colossus-based army, which forces you into Stalkers to protect them, which forces you into Sentries to keep stuff away from it, etc., etc. But anyways, on to this game. We do have a Hellion being made. We do have a lot of tech coming out of DieStar. 2 gas on this map, a map that we a lot of times see very fast command centers on. And look at this SCV getting by, but the Stalker will end up taking it down, but not before it sees a couple more gateways right there.
Yeah, he's doing a pretty good job. The Protoss is of keeping Terran outside of his base. Interesting opener here. He's going to go for a starport. This usually indicates that we're going to see the one base build that I actually like to do a lot during the beta, Mass Marines. I know we joked
What's
about
the name of that build?
The Tasteless build.
Yeah.
It's that build or any build that wins. But, on a serious note, it's one where you essentially get,
point
defense drone, push forward, get siege tanks, get Marines, and, you can do a pretty strong push. He can go for Banshees as well and try to expand.
Oh, and here the Hellion goes to try to get by. Will there be a force field?
Nice.
Yes! The force field does go down and makes a Nexus right afterwards. I am liking Minigun's play so far here. Good usage of that force field. If that Hellion had got in, he would have known every single thing going on, but of course that probe was out there, so DieStar may have some idea of what's going on. Look at this. This kid is going seriously all in, Tasteless. Another barracks being produced as well.
And then normally with a build, if you're going to do an all-in like this, I feel like the Terran is sort of doing 2 things at once. He's getting the bunker at his entrance, he could have spent that money on an additional barracks. I know that it is a little bit scary when you see additional gateways in the Protoss base, but if you're essentially going for a one base attack move, which it looks like he definitely is now, you don't need to have a bunker.
Yeah.
I mean, you're investing your money in the wrong direction. And as we can see now, a Raven is on the way, so he will be doing the point defense drone technique, which basically makes Stalkers useless.
Yeah, against this, there's a few things you can do as Protoss. Personally, I like to defend off one base. The Banshee is coming in, and no, he has not seen it yet, so his units do just sit there, and will that Banshee be able to get in here and get a lot of kills? This could really dictate the game. Let's see, here it comes, and it looks like one kill. Up comes the army right away.
They're spilling into the main base here, warping in one Stalker. The Stalker should be killed off, but the important thing to note is that Stalker did buy time so there weren't more probes killed.
Yeah.
Only 3 probes killed in that attack.
Not a huge deal.
Not a huge deal, really. What's weird about this is we don't have Cloak yet.
Yeah.
And normally if you're going to do a rush like this with a Banshee, stalling, you're all in, you would get a Cloak.
It looks like, in fact, instead of Cloak, he's spending that gas on Siege mode, and, the cool thing about getting Cloak with it is, of course, you can snipe an Observer, because you do have that Raven, and if you do end up doing that, Protoss is like, oh, gee whiz, this is bad. But, let's go back to what the Protoss can actually do here. There's a couple ways to take out one of these one-base all-ins with point defense drone and a lot of Marines, and, well, one way is to get Colossus out, and to lay down some really good force field, trap those Marines, and just reduce the Marine count. Oh, look at that. Nice Banshee clean up the probe. But, anyways, you reduce the Marine count, and then eventually crush through. You kind of slow play it.
The easiest way to stop it is, because Terran is dependent on the strength of Siege mode, you don't wait at the entrance of your base. You wait outside their base, make them siege up, walk away. Meanwhile, you're continuing to produce units. They can't leave just with the Marines and the siege tanks. You're also likely to force them to spit out a point defense drone prematurely.
Yeah, that's always nice as well. And, of course, the other way would be super fast charge zealots, but that is not an option here. He is going for Colossus, he is going for Thermal Lance, but he has got to get off good force fields. A lot of this is going to depend upon that. He's got to run out front. Do not let the first engagement be right in front of your Nexus.
I'm a little bit kind of startled by the Protoss actually letting the Terran move across the map like this. Even if you dart out once, you can get 1 point defense drone forced out.
And here we go. Oh, poor force fields there. He really needed to trap some of those Marines and take them out. The siege mode was not, the tanks were in siege mode, so he could have done a lot more damage there, but here we go. Will he be able to take out this Banshee? And does take it out. Nice move there, but the Marines still coming back up, and these are the moments that you need to actually go ahead and force field behind those Marines and make the Colossus deal the damage. As is, he's letting the Terran dictate this battle, moving up, leapfrogging his siege tanks, and the Marines are all alive.
As you can see, he's getting so close. He's almost in range of the Nexus here. In fact, with this siege tank coming up right here, I believe he will be, it looks like 1 tank spot away. And with that, the Protoss is going to have to make a decision. Do I attack, or do I just go up my ramp and give this up?
At this point, I would almost say give it up, and taking a lot of damage on that Colossus. He does have Thermal Lance now, but, there's just too many Marines there, and as those bunkers finish, the DPS from those Marines, the damage percent is going to be unbelievably high. It's going to be very hard to break through, but he is trying a little bit here. Not really doing the best job yet. Is taking out a few Marines, but the siege tank and Marines dealing a lot of damage to that Protoss army, and smartly, Minigun decides to abandon this expansion at this point. From here, he is unbelievably behind.
Yeah, he invested that money in the Nexus, getting the assimilators as well over there, and not really having the chance to utilize it. Terran does not have an additional expansion yet, but when you consider where the players have invested the most in and what they still have left after that skirmish, Terran is just in a huge lead. Also note, even though our Protoss has Colossus, this is not a map where you can just walk out of your main base onto land. The vast majority of your main base is surrounded by outer space, not a low ground, if you will. So he is really in a bad position. And with bunkers coming up here right now, I don't know if there's really a whole lot Protoss can do.
Yeah, well, nice move right there, and the all-in does continue, Tasteless.
Yes, still all-in. Normally we'd see a player revert back. Okay.
There we go.
There we
Finally deciding, okay, I'm far enough ahead that I should get more far ahead instead of trying to push too much further. But he has basically all his units over there. The only thing is, It's going to be hard to attack up that. Ooh, and we do have a Warp Prism that is going to be made. Now, what will he do with this Warp Prism? Just try to elevate all his units out and all in? Will he try to expand? What do you think is?
I think the best move is to try to elevate her out as quickly as possible. They're still fairly close with supply here. That if you try to get out, the problem is though Terran can then push into the main. Really, Protoss is at such a tremendous disadvantage. I really can't emphasize that enough for our viewers. And that's really kind of symbolized by this contain that we saw outside of the Protoss's base. The map is Terran's right now.
Certainly. The way I like to deal with something like this, if you look at that siege line that we just saw, the tanks are behind the bunkers and they're in a line. If you manage to elevate her out, you can crush that by attacking in from a different angle.
Yes, that is very true.
Yeah, so we're going to have to see if he does something like that. And flies by that Banshee. Not sure if DieStar really saw that, but he does have that Marine. Gonna have to see if that comes into play. Marines all over the place. Good usage of watchtowers. Dropping a probe off. The Banshee coming back in. Let's see how many kills it can actually get. 6 kills on this Banshee thus far. And that's gonna be it.
That's it. Not the best usage of that Banshee. Okay, so he's been spotted. And he's going to warp in a Zealot.
Yeah.
Now, here's the problem, is he did not opt to go for an elevator strat. It looks like instead he wants to take an additional main base while slowing down the Terran back at home, knowing that the Terran's army is basically outside the front of the Protoss's base. He should have lacking defenses, things pretty thin and ill-equipped to deal with something like this and try to take it from there. But again, the big problem is how is he going to get his entire army outside of the base as the game goes on? As the game goes on, he's going to have more and more units, and that's a lot more stuff he has to carry out. Mikey, spotting the Warp Prism. Here come the Zealots. They have to do damage. I don't see it happening, Artosis.
No, these Zealots are not really going to do anything. I think this was so ill-advised. Really, maybe, get the probe out there, make your expansion, but then what are you going to actually do at this point in the game? He has full tech. He has all the watchtowers. And you're going to warp in 3 Zealots and do damage? No, you got to just go ahead, get your units outside of that main ASAP. And imagine this. He has another Warp Prism already. If he had 2 right now ferrying things out, maybe he gets his army out. And on open ground, without all those bunkers, his army is pretty comparable to what the Terran has.
Well, here's another problem, is that when you show your Warp Prism in a harassment move like that, it's so obvious that the Protoss has something else on the map.
Yeah.
It's so obvious.
Yeah, it really is.
That there's really no way that that expansion shouldn't be spotted eventually here. Terran isn't going to think, he just made a Warp Prism. Thank God he only sent Zealots in it. He could have expanded like that. And, with the scan here and seeing the Chrono Boost on the robotics facility, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah. The Vikings are out for our Terran. He is going to start elevatoring out finally, but imagine, again, he has 2 Warp Prisms right now, already lost one. If he had started this a long time ago and he had 3 right now, he would be in the middle of the map. He would actually have map control at this point. Could have flanked the contain and crushed it. So, this is something that sets apart really good players from the absolutely great players as far as crisis management goes. I feel like he's made a few mistakes, but if he can get this whole army out tasteless, this would be the beginning of a comeback.
Yeah, Terran does not know.
He has not seen this. Oh, but he does move out and should see it from here.
This is a mistake. Yeah, Terran's going to know. And from here, it's pretty easy. Terran regroups, sends everything, and these Vikings, I think, are going to get a very good angle.
Especially with the Raven there. Look at that. 2-point defense drones beautifully laid there. The Stalker's doing no damage. In comes the Terran army from the side to flank, and that's going to have to be GG. This is not something that any player in the world can come back from. Oh my god. A Warp Prism with the Colossus going out.
GG.
GG, that is it. So it is tied up, Tasteless. 1-1.